Yeah. Hi team, welcome to Cloud Pandit. In this Azure Data Factory Master Program video series, so in today's session we will talk about top level concepts of the Azure Data Factory. So after watching this particular video, you will be very comfortable in understanding the top level concepts of the Azure Data Factory as well as the main components of the Azure Data Factory. Okay, so because I'm going to cover a lot of examples in this particular session, which basically make you more comfortable in understanding the top level concepts and main components of the Azure Data Factory. Let's get started. What are the top level concepts? First is what is data factory, data pipeline, activity, data set, linked service, integration runtime, triggers, data movement, data flow, monitoring and management. These are the top level concepts that we are going to discuss. So in order to understand what is data factory, data pipeline, activity, data set, all these things, let's go with a simple example so that you will be able to understand all of those things very easily. Okay, let's say you want to shift the house from one location to the another location. Okay, in your current location you have a house where you have a lot of things which you need to shift it to the new house here. Okay, so when you are shifting to the new house, what is the first thing that you need to do? First, you need to unlock the current address home, meaning you need to open the door and you need to enter into the current address home. Then you need to pack it, all the things that you have in the current address home. Then you will give the delivery address, like where we need to shift this particular packed items. Then once we reach the new address, we will unpack the items which we have packed. Then we will unlock the new address house door. Once we have entered into the new house, right? Once we have unlocked, once we entered, we will keep all these things in the new house. Who will be doing all these things? So all these things will be done by delivery boy. Okay, who will be managing all these things? Delivery manager is managing. So in this, if you take examples, right? If you take example, the key terms that we have here is, first thing is unlocking. You need to unlock the current house and the new house. You need to packing. You need to apply the packing at the current house and you need to do the unpacking at the new house. Meaning unlocking both side, packing and unpacking both needs to be done here and there. Like packing should be done in the current address, unpacking should be done at the new address. Delivery address, meaning we need to deliver, meaning we need to transport them into the new address from the current address. Three things. The fourth one is we need a delivery boy to do all these things, right? So delivery boy is the key person who is basically unlocking, packing, delivering, unpacking, again keeping the house in the keeping the things in the new address or new house, right? The fourth one is delivery boy. Finally, we have a delivery manager who is managing these things. So total five. I am repeating again: unlocking, packing, unpacking. So the third thing is delivery address. Fourth thing is the delivery boy. Fifth one is delivery manager. So once you understand this example, let's see in the real time using Azure Data Factory, what kind of jobs we will do. Let's say I have a storage account, one of the storage account. In the storage account, I'll have a folder, and in that folder, I have a file 1 and file 2. This you can think of like in your computer, you created a folder. Okay, maybe movies folder, you will keep all the movies. Photos folder, you will put all the photos like that. I have a one of the storage account where I can able to store my data. So there I created a one of the folder called some input or something like that you can consider. Here I have uploaded two files, file 1 and file 2. What is the thing that we will do here is we want to copy all these particular files into the another file. Okay, another file. Let's say your friend is requested some movie, so you wanted to share this particular movie file, you want to copy into the new storage. What you will do, first thing is here also we need to connect to the blob storage. Okay, so you need a keys and addresses to connect to that particular, meaning storage name, storage keys to connect to the blob storage. Once you connected, then you will create a data set, meaning you will select which data, which file you want to read it. You will select the data set. Then what you want to copy this data, then you will use a task called copy task. Okay, then what you want to do, same data set, I want to here source side, let's say you have a MP4, maybe he want only audio, right? MP3. There are some kind of a conversions you can do. As it is also you can send, right? So let's say there is a conversion, you want only audio file. I just converted into audio. Okay. Then I am just unlocking the like meaning I am entering into the new storage account. And once I entered into the new storage account, I am keeping this particular file in the new storage account. Who will be doing all these things? When we are shifting the house, there is a connections, there are packing, unpacking and delivery. Here also we have a keys for connecting to the blob storage at source at sync side. We are reading the data at the source at sync side. We are copying the data from source to sync. But who is doing all these things? There delivery boy is doing. Here we have a something called integration runtime, which are computers which do this particular task. Who will manage this? Their delivery manager is there. Here Azure Data Factory is just a manager who will manage all these things. Within that, integration runtime is the compute service which is doing all these activities. Here keys and addresses is basically used for connecting to the source and the target data storages, blob storages. Data sets is basically for selecting the files, selecting the structure, okay, selecting what data you want, what files you want, what folders you want, what tables you want, what columns you want in the table. So if you want to select any kind of any sort of data, you are going to do it with the help of data sets. Copy activity is the one of the tasks. You just want to copy. If you want to delete the data, you have a delete. So if you want to basically run the kind of a Databricks notebooks from the Azure Data Factory, you have a notebook activity. There are a lot of activities we have. We will be using the activity is nothing but a kind of a task. Copy activity is nothing but used for copying. Delete activity for deleting. Okay. Here connections. So what we will use is the component or top level concept that we are using to connect to the storage account is linked service. For reading the data from source storage and sync storage is basically data set. The data sets will read the data from source. One more data set we will create at the target side, which basically takes the input data set data and write it into the target storage with the help of the output data set. Now, so we will see more example. If you see, okay, same example, but this time I just changed from blob storage to the SQL database. I am basically loading the data. Here, first thing is I have used a linked service to connect to the blob storage. Then I am creating a CSV, one CSV dataset for selecting the first file, another CSV dataset for selecting the second file. Then I am using one copy activity to copy this particular file into the one table in the database. And this particular CSV data, you can consider as this is a employee, this is a department. Employee CSV file I am copying into the employee table. Department CSV file data I am copying into the department table. But where this table should be copied, this table should be loaded into the server. So to create these tables, load data into the server, we need to connect to the server as well. So that's why I'm creating a one more linked service for the SQL server. Okay, so if you see here, linked services we are using for connection. Here we are using for connecting to blob. Here we are using for connecting to the database. Okay, data sets are used for selecting the data. Okay, so here also we are selecting the table, in which table we need to store the data. Here we are selecting which file we want to read. So the task we are using for copying from this CSV file data, you copy into the employee table in the database. So this copy activity is helping us to copy that. So all these like where we are using all these things, so these particular activities we will use in the pipeline. So careful observe, within this pipeline we use these activities. Okay, these activities uses the data sets. Data sets uses the linked services. Linked services connects to the storage. Again, I'm repeating, these pipelines, inside pipeline we use activities. Activities internally uses these data sets. Copy activity, source side this data set, sync side this data set it will use. Source side it will read the department CSV file, sync side it will read the department table. Okay, this is the copy activity, copies from a department CSV file to the department table in the database. So under pipeline, we are using activities. Under activity, we are using dataset. Datasets uses the linked service to read data from source. And these linked services are basically connected to the source or sinks. So this is for connecting to the blob storage. This linked service for connecting to the database. So this is done within the pipeline. But this pipeline to run, who is basically helping to run all these things? Integration runtime. Who is managing pipelines, integration runtime, linked service, datasets, activities? All of these things are managed within the Data Factory. Data Factory is an integration service which helps to connect to the different sources, and it helps to copy the data, orchestrate the jobs, everything we can able to do within the Azure Data Factory. Azure Data Factory is a manager who will manage all these things. What are those? Linked service, data sets, activities, pipelines, integration runtime. Okay, high level. Here we are copying data from blob to SQL Server. So in this example, if you see what I am doing, I am copying data from blob storage to the ADL agent. Again, we need a one linked service for the blob storage, one linked service for the ADL agent, one data set for the blob storage, one data set for the ADL agent. Then I am using the copy activity to copy data from the blob storage to the data lake. Data lake is another storage where we are managing all these things within the data factory pipeline. Who is running this data factory pipeline? Integration runtime. Who will manage integration runtime pipeline? All of this, Azure Data Factory manage all of these things. Okay, I hope I have given the enough examples to make you understand very detail. Let's quickly discuss on the things. What is linked service? A connection configuration that defines the connections to the external data sources or destinations. Okay, it can be a source systems or destination systems, which is basically used for connection configuration, meaning to connect. Let's say if I want to download my Aadhaar card, right? So I need to log in. I need to enter my Aadhaar card. I need to get a Aadhaar number, and once I enter the Aadhaar OTP, then I can able to log in. Similarly, if you want to connect to any database, you need to enter username and password. Like that, if you want to connect to any of the storage or database from Azure Data Factory, we are going to use all the username, password, that particular service name, right? So we need to provide all those connection configurations. Using that, we can able to connect to the any source and the destination. It includes credentials and other relevant settings within the linked service. The best example is within the linked service, instead of hard coding username and password, we will use the keyword. But anyhow, we will discuss each and everything in the labs going forward. Okay. Next, dataset. What is dataset? A dataset is nothing but a data structure that represents data ingested or processed by activities within the data pipeline. So what data we need to read, right? What data, like how the data need to be transformed and loaded into the target. Transform means not changing the data, but we can read a CSV, write it as a Parquet. We can read a Parquet, write it as a CSV. A lot of conversions we can do. We can read a CSV, write it as a table. We can read a table, we can write it as a CSV, and so on we can do. Basically, data sets defines the schema and location of the data. So location means the path of the data, in which location data is available. What is the structure of the data? How many columns are there? What are the data type of each column? Everything we available within the data set. What is activity? A single processing step within a data pipeline. Activities can perform a data movement, data transformation, or control flow action. Data movement means if you want to move data from one place to another place, we have a copy activity, which we have discussed in the example. Data transformation means you want to join two tables, you want to unify, uniform, like union two data sets, like you want to combine or union two tables data, two CSV files data. So the control flow means, let's say if the file is having name starts with the sales, then only the file should be copied, otherwise we should not copy. Like that, if you have any controls, okay, if you want to control anything, we have a control task. Then if you want to just move the data, there are data movement tasks. Then data transformation means, as I mentioned, if you want to join union, anything that you want to do, you have the data transform activities. So linked service, we must need a linked service for connection details. data set for reading the file or table from that particular location and defining the schema, activities for performing the task. Now, without linked service, we cannot create the data set. Without data set, we cannot able to execute most of the activities. 90% of the activities require the data sets. There is a dependency. Connection is required to read the data. Once we read the data, then only we can able to do anything on top of that data by using the activities. There is a dependency. Now, those activities we can able to use within the pipeline, data pipeline. What is pipeline? A logical grouping of activities that defines the data flow and transformation steps to move data from source to destination. What it means is, if you want to basically copy data, then source side, I don't want data, already copied data into the target. So you can use the delete activity like that. So first copy, then delete. Like that sequentially, if you want to execute group of activities, you can do that. Otherwise, let's say I want to copy data from blob to data lake, on-premise SQL Server to data lake. So there are two things that I need to do. From two source systems, I want to combine the data into data lake. Two copy activities you can use and you can run parallel. That example also I have shown you. There are two CSV files which are in different folders. So what I was doing, using two different copy activities, I am copying. But without using two copy activities also, we can copy those things we will see in the labs. Integration runtime. It is nothing but a compute environment used to execute the data integration activities. So Azure Data Factory supports Azure self-hosted and Azure SSIS integration runtime. There are three types of IRs. But what is the use of each IR, each type of IR we will discuss. But high level you understood. Integration runtime is a compute infrastructure which we are using to copy data from like source systems to the target system. Integration runtime is a computational infrastructure. Okay, which is the main component, which is basically helping the data pipelines to move the data, dispatch the jobs to start the data transformation jobs and all. What is data factory? The main entity that serves as a container for managing, organizing data pipelines, data sets, linked service triggers. So it is just a container for managing all these things. As we discussed, it's kind of a delivery manager who will manage the integration on the pipeline activities, everything. Okay, next. Triggers. What is triggers? So now you created the pipeline. So this pipeline every day it has to copy, or whenever new file comes into the storage account, it has to pick that file and copy into the target. Everything should be automated. To automate it, to run the pipelines every day at 8 a.m. based on particular schedule, we are going to use the triggers. So triggers is a mechanism used to initiate the execution of the data pipeline. To run your data pipeline, it is a mechanism for automation. These triggers can be scheduled or event based. What is scheduled? Every day at 8 a.m. I want to run, or every day at 4 a.m. I want to run. You can use schedule based. What is event based? Event based means whenever a new file comes into the blob storage, immediately you run pipeline based on the new event occurred, right? New file arrived into the blob means new event. When new event occurred, you can able to respond and you can run the pipelines to do the data copy and etc. Data movement, the process of copying data between data stores. Okay, if you want to copy data from on-premise to cloud, or cloud to cloud, or blob to blob, or blob to data lake, or blob to SQL database to blob, SQL database to SQL database, anything, processing of copying data between any two data stores. Okay, between any two data stores is nothing but a data movement. So Azure Data Factory supports the various data sources including on-premise and cloud-based services. There are a lot of on-premise and cloud-based services it can support. We will discuss each and everything in detail. Data movement category talks about only data movement. There is no transformations, meaning joining two tables, combining the two results, all those things we can't do. But whereas data flow, it basically do a enter ETL, reading data, transforming, meaning adding a new columns, joining the two data frames, combining the result from the multiple tables or multiple files. Okay, so writing into the target, or whatever data you are getting that you want to split it, you are getting all countries data, but I want to split India, US, UK data, you can able to split it and you can write India data to separate table, US data to separate table, and so on. Such type of data transformation we can do using the data flow. Finally, whether it is a data movement or data flow, the data copying or data transformation, so whatever is happening, everything we need to monitor, right? For monitoring and management, we have Azure Data Factory is providing the monitoring tools to track pipeline execution, managing the data pipelines, and troubleshooting the issues. For all those things, we have a monitor tab which basically helps to monitor all of the things. Okay, so that's all, team. So let's quickly discuss the summary questions. Which of the following is not a top level concept in Azure Data Factory? As we discussed, linked service we discussed, pipeline we discussed, data flow we discussed. We have not discussed data flow. The answer is D. What is the primary purpose of data pipeline in Azure Data Factory? To host web application, to manage virtual machine, to orchestrate data movement and transformation, to create SQL database. Answer is C, to orchestrate data movement and transformation. 3. What does a linked service defines in Azure Data Factory? A connection to the external data source or a destination, group of related data pipeline, set of transformation, storage location. No. Answer is A. It is basically used for establishing the connection to the external data sources or destinations. What is the role of data set in Azure Data Factory? To define connection or to represent the schema and location of the data used by activities? Yes, the answer is correct. It is not for monitoring or scheduling. It is for representing the schema and location of the data used by activities. Next, which activity within a data pipeline allows building ETL process using a visual interface? Data movement activity, data transformation activity, data flow activity, control flow activity. Remember, to execute the data flow, which is basically ETL process using the visual interface without writing code, we can able to build all the data transformation ETL jobs we can build without writing any code using the data flow. So that data flow to execute, we have an activity called data flow activity. The right answer is C. What are triggers used for in Azure Data Factory? To define data schema, to copy data between data store, to initiate the execution of the data pipeline, to manage compute environment. The answer is C, to initiate the execution of data pipelines. Next, which integration runtime allows running data integration activities in Azure environment? So we have three types of IRs. Okay, self-hosted, Azure, SSIS. On-premise integration runtime, the option A is not type of integration runtime, you can rule out. The second type is Azure SSIS integration runtime, you can use to execute the SSIS packages from the cloud. Azure integration runtime we can use whenever you want moving data from cloud to cloud. So self-hosted integration runtime you can able to use whenever the on-premise is involved, whenever you are copying data from on-premise to cloud. So which integration runtime allows running data integration activities within the Azure means the C, Azure integration runtime. What are integration runtimes used for in Azure Data Factory? To monitor, to execute data integration activity, to define data movement, to manage linked service. The answer is B, to execute data integration activities. Next. What does Azure Data Factory provide for monitoring and managing data workflows? Azure Logic App, Azure Monitor, Azure Virtual Machine, Azure DevOps, Azure Monitor for monitoring our workflows or pipelines, etc. Which concepts in Azure Data Factory enables copying data between data stores? Data movement, data pipeline, data flow, data transformation. So between the data stores, two data stores, if you want to copy the data, we can use the data movement category of activities such as copy activity and copy activity, which we can able to use to copy the data. Okay, that's all, team. I request all of you to subscribe my YouTube channel and support me and encourage me to do more videos. And please subscribe my YouTube channel to get more videos. Okay, thank you all. Thank you.